We are now recording.
All right, thank you. Good evening, all their staff and the people from the public. We're going to start the agenda for the Protection and Policy Committee dated Monday, August 22nd, 2022. Roll call. Alder Grant. She's here, but not showing. Alder Scannell.
Present.
All right, and Alder Morgan.
Present.
And I'm here as well, Alder Stevens. All right, we'll move on to approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Motion. All right, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, Alder Scannell, Alder Morgan. And then approval of the minutes from August 8th, 2022. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, first Scannell, second Morgan. On to regular business.
Don't we have to vote on them though?
Oh, yeah. All right. Moving us along today.
Yeah, I see that. That's good, but
Motion, okay, all in favor?
aye.
Nays? The ayes have it. On to regular business, agenda item number 1, consideration of possible action on a request by Keggers LLC at 231 North Broadway to extend their licensed premise on August 27th for a one-day event. Common Council did authorize Protection and Policy Committee to be the final approving authority regarding this event. But we will go over to Attorney Bochart. She has some information for us.
Thank you. So there was an issue with this licensee obtaining permission to use that parking lot, which is actually owned by the city. So my recommendation would be, if the desire is to approve it, it would be contingent upon receiving a special event permit from the city. And I've been in contact with our special events coordinator, so we could follow up on that after this meeting, but they need to receive permission to use a city parking lot for the event, in addition to expanding the premise for their liquor license. So that needs to also take place.
All right, thank you. Any questions, Alders?
Is there anything from police?
The police have no issue with them having or extending their permit. I know they've had events there before, so if they do get the extension or special event permit from the city, it's fine with the police department.
Is Will Liebergen here?
I don't see him as any of the participants and no one's in the waiting room.
He had called me a little over a week ago and told me petition. I told him he should call the clerk's office and do so. Apparently he didn't, and I don't know. I don't know, he had changed his mind on it somehow. I can't remember it was over a week ago. I expected this not to be here. I didn't think I had to remember anything. So I don't know if we should receive and place on file or what would be the best thing to do. I'm assuming he doesn't want to go forward with this.
Looks like this event is 5 days away though. Can we back it up and still make it available to them if needed?
I suppose we could pass it with the caveat he needs to get a special events permit, and if he gets it.
Those are the guys.
Oh. Was that?
Go ahead, Brad.
The gentleman that just entered is a Matt Roser. I don't know if he is part of Kegger, so I muted him in case he forgot to mute his mic.
I wonder if we should open the floor. Motion to open the floor, see if there's anybody here for this.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Is anybody here to speak on this agenda item?
Well, motion to close the floor.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
I,
Aye. All right, the floor is now closed.
well, how about we make a motion to
So-
approve with that caveat, and if he doesn't get the special event license or permit, it doesn't, the event
Attorney
doesn't
Cole-
happen.
Okay, Rand, Attorney Kochar. This should be denied because he did not get permission from the city to use the parking lot, correct?
Yes, it requires a special events permit. But I'm not aware that that process, he was directed to that process or received a denial. So that was my suggestion, that it could be approved if a special events permit was obtained. I checked earlier with our special events coordinator and no such permit is in progress. So to my knowledge, it hasn't been denied, but that's what would be required to use the parking lot for the event.
Yeah, I think there's something about the special event permit and he didn't want to go through that or something or other. But if we approved it and with that caveat that he needs to have that permit to hold the event, then if he gets it, he can have it. And if he doesn't get it, he can't have it, which may be just fine with him perhaps.
All right, Alder Scannell, how would you like to word that?
Motion to approve with the condition that he gets a special event permit.
Yep, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Alder Grant, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Nays? All right, that passes. Okay, regarding the remainder of this agenda tonight, protection and policy is only a recommendation to the Common Council, which will be on August 30th. Item number 2, consideration of possible action on a request by Tux2 Inc. Blue Collar Bar and Grill at 1313 South Broadway to temporarily extend their licensed premise to the back parking lot, one-day event on September 24th. Lieutenant Mahoney?
The police have no issue with this. We're satisfied they'll have good security. And make sure that all ordinances and laws are being complied with.
All right, thank you. Attorney Cochran?
We agree with the police department.
All right, thank you.
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Followed by Alder Grant. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Nays? All right, that passes. Number 3, consideration of possible action on a request by Green Base at 1265 Lombardi Avenue, temporarily extend their licensed premise to the parking lot 5 and 6 on September 17th for a one-day event. Lieutenant Mahoney?
The police also have no issue with this one. They've had this numerous times in the past and are very good at making sure they're carding people. And that there's no alcohol violations going on.
All right, thank you. Attorney Cochran?
We agree with the PD.
All right, I'll take a motion.
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
By Alder Grant, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Nays? All right, that passes. Number 4, consideration possible action on an application for Class A liquor and Class A beer license for Samian LLC at 321 South Washington Street with the license premise described as Marketplace located next to check-in guest lobby. Lieutenant Mahoney?
Just to let you, others know, this is the hotel there. And the police have no objection. It's just to sell beer out of their cooler next to their front desk.
Attorney Cochran?
We agree with the police department.
Okay, I'll take a motion.
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second,
Second by Alder Morgan. All in favor?
aye,
Aye.
Aye.
Nays? All right, that one's approved. Consideration with possible action on application for Class B liquor and Class B beer license for Groot Inc. LLC or Investments LLC at 1939 Main Street with a licensed premise description as small bar, small office, no basement, small patio, license the 2021-2022 license year as Kittner's Inc. Lieutenant Mahoney?
Police have no objection.
Attorney Colchart,
We agree.
okay. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Alder Grant, all in favor?
Aye.
Ayes? All right, the ayes have it. Consideration with possible action on an available Class B liquor and Class B beer license for Ronnie B. Suffolk, individual at 1699 East Main Street with a licensed premise description as behind bar basement. Previously licensed during the 2021-2022 license year as Twisted Throttle Saloon LLC. Lieutenant Mahoney,
Please have no objection.
Attorney Colchart,
We agree.
I'll take a motion.
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, we all the grant, all in favor?
Aye.
Nays? All right, the ayes have it. Consideration with possible action on an available Class B liquor and Class B beer license for Burritos Mexico LLC at 113 South Military Ave with a license premise description as entire inside of restaurant stored in kitchen. Lieutenant Mahoney?
I just want to make the others aware they might not have seen the bar and stipulation plan in their packet. It is in our records department. I just want to assure you that our officer did go and do the security plan and stipulation agreement. We're trying to find it in our records division. If not, we'll have another one signed by the owners, but they were in complete agreement with all of our stipulations and bar plans, so we have no objection.
Attorney Colchart?
We agree.
All right, I'll take a motion.
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Alder Grant, all in favor?
Aye.
Nays? All right, that passes. Number 8, consideration of possible action on communication by Alder Weary, District 8, to request a change to early absentee voting location to a larger location in City Hall to provide all observers an unfettered view of all election activities. Transparency and flexibility should be our goal for all elections. Wisconsin State Statute 6.855, alternate absentee ballot site. The governing body of a municipality may elect to designate a site other than the office of the municipal court or board of election commissioners as the location for where electors of the municipality may request and vote absentee ballots, and to which voters voted absentee ballots shall be returned by electors or any election. We will go to Clerk Jeffries.
Good evening.
Good
Do you
evening.
hear me? Yes, okay, good. So according to, that same statute, it was in the 6.85, so that's the one, the time to choose an alternate location for the August and November elections was June 9th. So for the 2022, it would not be possible to do that?
Clerk Jeffries,
Yes.
you possibly speak up a little bit. I have a hard time hearing you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, how about this? Is this better?
Yep.
Okay. In the communication, the correct statute was quoted 6.855 sub 1, but the time to select an alternate location for November passed in June 9th. So the time to select that alternate location is coupled for August and November, since those are both federal and statewide elections. That time is passed. I see that Alder Weary is not here, but I will say that in terms of having the in-person absentee voting in my office, there was some concern from observers expressed in August, the first day of voting, that they could not hear the voters and could not hear the clerk staff instructions. And so I created a space inside the office where observers could stand and listen. For November, obviously, we'll have more voting stanchions. We'll have a few more voting stanchions in the hallway. So there'd be a little bit more opportunity for observers to hear instructions from the staff and also hear the voters state their name and address.
Okay, thank you. Alders, any questions? Alder Scannell?
Yeah, if, after these elections, if we look at this again, is there a spot that might be better for doing the absentee balloting or?
So, I think that we all need to understand and remember that having in-person absentee voting is first for voters. And so it's important to make this appropriate and stable, convenient, easily accessible for voters. And then observers certainly come and observe the process. I think that we certainly can make decisions after November as to whether or not it would be prudent to expand voting to other locations, but that means it would come out of the clerk's office for those elections. So as maybe you remember me saying this back in June, that we can have both in-person voting at the clerk's office and alternate locations. And an alternate location would include City Hall. I have some concerns about security here at City Hall. I also want to be sure that should we select an alternate in-person site, that a place is secure for our ballots as well as for the voters who would come in. So I think that merits some consideration before we go ahead and select that.
Alder Grant?
Is there a reason that ballots aren't collected just in the main first floor City Hall office area that is bigger and allows for more space for people to observe?
I'm not sure which City Hall office area you're talking about.
Just the clerk's office, like where we turned in our paperwork when we were running. I mean, that's a bigger area,
That is the area,
but it's in your office.
which is the foyer of the office. That's exactly where you came to drop off your campaign documents, I call that the foyer. And so that's where in-person absentee voting takes place, in that foyer area.
Okay, because yeah, I'm just a little concerned where observers couldn't hear.
So as I said, I had adjusted that so they could come inside the foyer and then listen to the exchanges of, for the voter saying the name of the address, and then also the instructions from the clerk staff. Also during in-person voting, both of our foyer doors are open, so.
I see we have Alderman Weary here now. I don't know if he was able to hear the clerk comment that there was a June 6th deadline that we have passed.
Ninth.
June 9th, I'm sorry. Does Alderman Weary have any input that he'd like to put forth?
Thanks, Alder Morgan. No, I guess I was not aware of so the June 9th deadline was to set the location for the November election. All right, well then I guess it would be a moot point for this election, but we can certainly look forward to future elections because I think we'll all admit, or at least some of us, that it was kind of congested there. And it's going to be even a larger crush of people this time around. So whatever we can do to alleviate that and make it more transparent is going to be important. It's going to be vital.
I only brought that up to expedite the matter. If we don't have any option of anything to change, I guess I'd like to make a motion then that we deny it for tonight.
Receive and place on file is more appropriate, I think.
I agree with you. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I think we should receive and place on file then.
Second,
Motion, okay, never mind. I was gonna motion to open the floor because it looks like there's some people on here just in case anyone's here for this.
I'll second that.
Favor?
aye.
Okay, the floor is now open.
Hi, this is Sandy Juno, 616 Dauphin Street. I would like to comment on the early voting at City Hall. I know possibly, the area that we are in currently to observe, there is not very much room. However, you do have that customer service or welcome station that is part of the clerk's office, where I felt if you would do the absentee voting process at that desk, it would allow for people to observe and also assemble in the hallway as opposed to try and crowd into the office itself. We've had a number of issues with the city of Green Bay as far as being allowed into the office. And where we were placed when we finally were put in the office, it was right in the middle of the office space. People coming into the office would stand behind the observers, thinking we were in line. And since we're not really allowed to talk to any voters, it created some confusion. And also people that were voting a ballot had to walk around us to get to the voting station. So it doesn't have a very good traffic flow. However, I think if you do moved it to the customer service area, that would allow for more space and for both the voter and any observers that might be present. This has been an ongoing issue since we've been observing at the City of Green Bay Clerk's office. And I would really like to see something change before we get to November, because it's been a problem already, and we know November is a much bigger election than what the previous ones have been. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak on this matter? If not,
I would. I don't know if you can hear me.
yeah, I can hear you, Miss, yes.
Janet Angus, 1403 Shirley Street in Green Bay. I was there the day of the election when absentee ballots were returned. And my experience was we were not allowed in the clerk's office in the little foyer area to listen to people who were returning ballots. We could only observe through a door. There was no chair to sit on. We had to stand in the hallway, and it's a long day if you have no chair. They removed, there used to be a bench there you could sit on. Now they've removed the bench. We were relegated to the hallway, at least I was. And I sat on the floor for a couple of moments, and I was basically reprimanded by someone on the floor at all. We had to stand. And I just think we have the right to be inside of that glass area to hear, especially when people present with more than one ballot, to be able to observe that, listen to that, and hear what is occurring. Because sometimes, it's some of the election, it's some of the days of voting on election day, more than one ballot were accepted. And I think you have to hear the entire, what's going on in order to observe that process. So we were relegated to the hallway on election day. The door was closed. I have photos of it. You couldn't hear, you could barely see because you had to look around a corner. So observing the absentee ballot process, the return of those ballots on election day, given the fact that those doors are closed, you can't hear, you can barely see, it's difficult. And I think, in all honesty, that needs to be changed for November. We should have access to that foyer area so we can hear what's going on during that process. And if possible, could we get a chair so that, we have some elderly people that are there, older people that are there observing, and 10 hours of observing from 8 in the morning until when the polls, when the poll closes at 8, I think it's 8 o'clock. It's a long day for people to stand in the hallway. And I think our observers actually deserve better than that. We should be treating people who want to be part of the process with dignity and respect, especially when they have questions about how ballots are being returned. And how do you contest a ballot if you're not there to hear what's going on? Once the ballot is accepted, if 2 are accepted and you don't raise the issue or challenge it at that time, you don't know who the voter is. You haven't heard their name. You can't hear, how the ballot is being submitted. It's a real issue if there is a problem, but you don't know that because you can't hear because you're relegated to being in the hallway. So I thank you for your consider my observations. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Angus, so you said you were not allowed in the foyer?
Correct.
Okay,
The door was closed. The glass doors were closed. I'd be happy to send you all a photo that I took, and I mean, Clerk Jeffries is there, possibly she can answer why the doors are closed and why people to that foyer area. And we're talking the day of the election. That's the only day I observed this time. I was there on election day observing ballots being returned, absentee ballots being returned.
cool.
Alder Stevens, if you wouldn't mind if I could jump in really quickly to put a little bit of clarification on this observation situation between in-person absentee voting and during a period where absentee ballots are being returned to the clerk's office and an in-person absentee voting has closed. So the right to observe the in-person absentee voting process and voting itself during the polling locations is a statutory animal. It's created under statutes, and that is to observe the actual voting that's taking place. So during in-person absentee voting that's taking place in the clerk's office, the voter has to state their name and address, and then there are directions that the clerk's office staff provides to them as they're actually voting their absentee ballot in person in the office. Similar process happens when you go to the polling location. You have to state your name and address before you receive your ballot, and you go and vote that ballot. Drop off of absentee ballots is not something that's under that those same observer rules, and access is not contemplated under the statutes. The statutes don't provide any access to observation for the delivery of absentee ballots. There's nothing that the voter exchanges. There's no questions. Obviously, in light of the Teagan decision, the clerks are under all clerks across the state, and specifically Clerk Jeffries is following the rules of and the law that was handed down per the opinion in the Teagan decision by the Wisconsin Supreme Court, that we can only be accepting one ballot per person. And so that is what she is abiding by, but there is no mechanism by which that process is observed or verified. Obviously, observers are in the hallway and are able to watch people come in and out, but that statutory mechanism by which observers observe voting doesn't apply to the delivery of the ballot itself. There's nothing in the statute that gives us guidance, instructions, location, timing, nothing. The statutes are silent as to that. So I just wanted to make that clarification that people were not prevented from observing in-person absentee voting, and people were not prevented from observing voting at polling locations. There was just no designated observation area for the delivery of absentee ballots once in-person absentee voting ceased.
If I could respond briefly, I think the statute says casting a ballot. And for me, and I think for when I contacted WEC, I think the consensus was the casting a ballot does involve the process of returning a absentee ballot. We were not given access to the clerk's office. The doors were anything. As I said, you could watch, but you had to stand in the hallway and watch from the hallway. You weren't even given the courtesy of a chair to observe from. I think that casting a ballot is casting a ballot. I think the statute's being interpreted incorrectly by the law department. And that's my opinion. But I think we should have open and transparent elections, and having the door closed so that we can't hear the process or listen to, if questions are being asked of who's returning the ballots, because people show up with more than one ballot. You can't even see sometimes what happens when someone walks in with two ballots. So all we're asking for is transparency. Thank you again for your time.
And thank you. Anybody else that would like to speak on this?
I believe Alderman Weary had his hand up.
Well, he doesn't need to, we should close the
Yeah.
floor if there's
Now
no
I'm
one
gonna
else
take a
from the
motion to
public.
close the floor.
Motion to close the floor.
Do I have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Nay? All right, floor is now closed. Alder Weary?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, sorry, I jumped in a little quick, forgetting that there might be others in the public who wanted to comment, but I would ask Attorney Bungard perhaps if a state law or statutes don't require us, that doesn't mean it forbids us on the other end, correct? So we could do it, and if we want to be more open, it doesn't forbid us from doing it.
Oops, sorry, muted. No, there's no prohibition. It's just, I wanted to make that distinction, just to make it clear that all election regulations and necessities were being followed. But you are correct. There's no
Okay.
prohibition on allowing observers to observe the delivery of absentee ballots. I think it's I'll have to defer to Clerk Jeffries as to what the timing is, but there's a little bit of time before in-person absentee voting starts. And I think it's like a 2-day window up to the day of the election.
Okay,
When
I
it's,
appreciate it. Yeah, I wasn't ceding the first point. I was just acknowledging, I was just moving my rook into position as a supporting member of the argument.
sure.
Okay. Yeah, in looking at it further, I don't think we should receive it and place on file. We could send this back to the clerk's office to, number one, set a plan then for our spring election. That would be the next one, probably the primary, and come back with that. Otherwise, we're going to forget about it, and then it'll be too late because the deadline will have passed already. So that's number one, come back with the plan for the next election that we can do this for. And then number two, I think we can ask, and if I need a separate communication, that's fine, but we could ask to solve the more immediate problem of the room and the spacing constraint, because there's going to be more people and there might be more observers. So we need to figure out a way to handle all this within the designated. So kind of two things there, the immediate concern and then more permanent one. So up to the committee. I'm sure we might talk about it at council, but that's really all I had right now. Thanks.
I end my motion to refer to staff to report back on, after, if, sounds like the clerk has listened to some of the complaints in the past and moved observers into the foyer, that we refer this to staff to report back on how the elections went and on any possible changes or locations that they feel is appropriate, and we can take up the whole matter then.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'm sorry, Alder, I don't quite know what you mean.
Well, it sounded like you allowed people into they weren't allowed in the foyer and then they were.
Yeah,
Correct.
I think that there are some things that are getting muddled here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so let's just talk about the space for the November election. So yes, I'm making changes because we're expecting more people. So I'll make those changes ahead of the election for in-person voting, which is only 2 weeks, by the way. Still. And then there's this other issue about the time when people can come and observe people dropping off ballots. That's a separate matter altogether. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure which one you wanted to talk about.
Well, to report back on the specific, this is for possible consideration on a new location, a different location for absentee balloting, right? If I'm reading,
Yes,
I
so
got
I
these-
believe, right, all the word
So-
communication was to put it at an alternate location, which is because that time has passed. And so are you basically saying you would like me to come back and say how I'm going to set up in-person voting for the 2 weeks ahead of the November election?
well,
No.
we've passed that, right? You can't, it's
No,
up
I
to you.
mean, how I would set it up in the office. Because it's happening in the office. So are you asking? I'm not sure. Sorry, go ahead. I don't mean to speak for you.
Well,
I think-
we'll just report on how the election went in November with observers in the locations they're at, with everything set up the way it is, what problems there were, or if things went well, and if there were problems, possible solutions, including should we move this to another location, what other locations there might be, what the problems would be with them, what the pluses would be for them. Just an overall analysis of how things went, and if things went a little awry, what we might do about them for the spring election.
So
Does that make sense?
basically, wouldn't it be the agenda item at hand, just refer to the clerk's office to come back with additional
right.
information for 2023?
That's what I'm saying, refer back to staff with the report. And these are the things we'd like to see in the report.
Well, he already has it in the report.
Well, they can't report what hasn't happened. I'm talking about November, when that happens.
He's
Report
not,
out how that went.
but that would be a totally separate agenda item. Chris Ware's not asking for what's going to happen in November or how November went.
Right, but he wanted to hold it until after the until we could then statutorily take this up. Because we can't now. I think we can't do anything with this now as far as taking any action other than receive and place on file or to hold it.
If I could, a point of order, Mr.
I
Chairman.
feel that I would refer this to the clerk's office to deal with this. And if there is an issue in November, we address it at that time. Because right now, November could go off without a hitch, no
Right.
issues whatsoever. You
Right.
know, that we're talking, they observed some issues. Clerk Jeffrey understands those issues. She moved those people into the clerk's office room so they can observe them better. And that's going to not make the observers be outside where they can't hear people. So
Well,
I think it's
if I
two
could,
different things we're
just
dealing with.
Yeah, a point of order, Mr. Chairman, if I could, a couple things there. They actually weren't moved in. I think they were given a space marked off by tape, right? So they were physically outside, and I think they could maybe one at a time come in and stand in that space. So that was kind of a temporary fix, which was appreciated. You know, we brought the concern and they addressed it right away. But the ask would be if we can't change it permanently right now, to hear the plan at the next meeting of how it will be changed, because it'll still stay in that location, Alder Scannell, but you can reconfigure that location either using the welcome center or more of the hall, or reconfigure the interior of the office to allow more room. And I think that's probably what Clerk Jeffries was talking about. I could be wrong, but it would be good for us and the public to hear how that's going to be set up beforehand. And then we can take up how we want to permanently handle it next year.
So Alder Ware, you would like to know what the configuration will be of the clerk's office for November for observers.
For the observing of the early absentees and the returning of the ballots, yes.
May I also just interject, this is the process for the voters first, and then observers need to be folded into that. So just this is-
You gotta wave, Alder Grant.
Yeah.
Is Alder Grant one?
Just a question for clarification. If we were to move it into the hallway reception area, we're not past that deadline, correct? As long as it stays in City Hall?
So that is, the Welcome Center is not really part of the clerk's office. It's a kind of an odd appendage. And I think you can make an argument that it is part of it, but that is not an appropriate place for us to do in-person absentee voting for many reasons. One, it blocks the elevator. So when we use the Welcome Center in 2020, the City Hall was closed. And so we need to, make sure that we don't block the elevator for ADA. And there really isn't very good internet access in that area, a place for us to, because we need to actually access this vote in order to make absentee ballots. So that is not a great place. Additionally, when someone gets a ballot, we need to be able to see them take that ballot and vote it. And the clerk, that Welcome Center is a pocket where you can't see. So in 2020, we had used that for registrations, which is a good thing because you don't need to actually see someone vote a ballot. But when you have in-person absentee, you need to be able to give the voter a ballot and then see them vote that ballot, or have another staff member see them vote that. Hopefully that answers
Okay.
your question.
Yes, yeah, and I agree with Alder Weary. I just want to make sure that we have seating available for people, that we're being accommodating to that. So I too would like to just hear what the plan is within City Hall prior to the November election.
Sure, we did have seats for observation of voting. It's a separate issue about whether or not there can be observers for returning of votes. That's a separate issue. But we did have seats.
And I just want to make sure we have enough, that's all.
We did, we had two. That was enough.
So then I'm amending my motion, trying to get this right. To get a report at our next, well, how long would the clerk need to report back on the configuration for the next elections?
The next meeting is, the next meeting of PMP is September 8th, and then September 22nd. And that September 22nd meeting goes to the October 4th meeting. So I would say September 22nd.
Okay, so to report back on our meeting at September 22nd on the configurations and procedures for voting, observing voting for the November election. That sound right, Alder Weary?
My apologies. I was just looking at the calendar and September 22nd is on a Thursday, so I don't know.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let's see. I think I was looking at August.
That's right. Just trying to plan ahead.
Yes, September 12th and September 26th.
26th,
September 26th meeting.
September 26th.
Perfect. Okay.
Yes.
And could you repeat your motion again, Alder Scannell? Sorry.
Oh, I was hoping you wouldn't ask that.
Exactly. Don't deviate.
For, yeah, the clerk's office to report back on our September 26th meeting on the configuration and procedures for the November election,
For iPad.
for observing the vote.
The early absentee voting and the return of ballots.
For in-person absentee voting, return of ballots is separate.
Are we, well, see, that's the, I guess, well, then let's add to that and consideration on observing the return of ballots, which is separate, and why, and the pros and cons for doing that, and how it can be done. And so just a full report out on because we haven't been doing that, should we do it? How should we do it? Why and why not shouldn't we do it? Does that make sense? Clerk Jeffries? To take them both up? The observing of casting ballots and the observing of returning absentee ballots, which one, it appears we do, and the other we don't, correct? Correct.
Yes, because we have observation for voting procedures, not the returning of ballots that
Ballot,
they're
right.
not actually tabulating until election day. So I'm not sure that the second part should be referred to my office, but rather the law department.
Well, staff, I'm referring to staff. And
Okay.
staff can report out appropriately.
All right.
And you should add to refer to staff about possibly changing the early location starting next year.
Well,
The agenda
we
item- The
can,
agenda item that we're dealing with tonight.
right, but we need this information to determine that. This information would help us determine if that's necessary and where to go from there.
Okay.
So we got both issues covered, Alder Weary, correct?
Yeah, I think so. And it keeps
And-
the permanent change still in there in case we need it. So that, yeah. that works.
Yep. So report out and then possible, maybe possible according to the reports.
All right, do I have a second?
Okay.
By Alder Grant, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nays? All right, passes or moves forward. Number 9, consideration of possible action on communication by Alder Wery to review the August 19, 2022 primary election with possible action to address issues. We will go to Attorney Coachard or Clerk Jeffries.
Well, if we may, could I hear from Alder Wery first? 'Cause this is awful vague. I'm wondering if he has anything specific.
No, I appreciate it, Alder Scannell or Mr. Chairman. I put it out here as just a sounding board for the community or any members or staff if they see something that they could do better or they need our help with, or, you know, it's really just it's meant to be vague, so I wouldn't leave something out.
Well, thank
Okay.
you. I understand that there's a report coming in October, and I think August 9th is going to be on that report. So if someone could clarify.
Yes, that's accurate. October 4th, I'll make a report to council. The original communication from Alder Burnett was for August 9th election to the November election. So, I mean, that timing is appropriate given the report I'll provide for November, the November IPAP setup. As well as whether, you know, in what way we would allow observers for non-voting return of ballots. So that would be October 4th at council.
All right, thank you. So what's a proper receive and place on file? Attorney? Okay.
Well, it seems redundant, so you could, yes, you could just receive and place on file if you'd like.
Okay, I'll take a motion to receive and place on file.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Okay.
By Alder Grant, all in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Oh, ayes have it. Okay.
How do I
consideration-
raise my hand?
Oh, was there?
Can we still motion to open the floor?
Regarding which item?
Well, the one we just,
And that would have been, my apologies, Mr. Chairman, my only suggestion would have been to open the floor in case somebody here to help, comment on it. And these would be, and I know everybody has the reasons for meeting online, but this would be much, much easier if we were in person, because then you'd see someone there raising their hand saying, hey, I'm here for this meeting. Now, Parks and INS, we've been meeting in person since April. So come on. Get with
Alder
it, guys.
Wery, Alder
with it.
Wery, just so you know, that's a top conversation after tonight's meeting here, so.
Get with it. All right, good.
I would like to comment on this if you do open the floor, so.
can I, yeah, motion to open the floor?
Do we need
You have to
to?
reconsider, you already voted on it, so
Right.
you're gonna have to go back and reconsider that.
So reconsider.
And just give me 1 moment, because I have to go back now. Hold on.
Okay.
So if it's for agenda item 9, that's the one that you just voted on. I'm not sure what the person
Yes.
wants to speak on agenda number 9.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay,
Alder
motion to
Grant.
reconsider number 9, item number 9.
Okay, do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? All right, passes.
If I may, though, Mr. Chair, if we could limit the comment, I mean, this is for alder action, which I don't know, there isn't much alder action we can do. So that the comments are limited to what we as a council can take up. Otherwise, there's really, the complaint should go to the people who can do something to rectify or listen or do whatever with the complaint. So it should be something that relates to our business.
Okay.
Make a motion to open the floor.
Oh, already
Second.
done.
Yeah, we already did that.
Oh,
Yeah,
we already did that. Okay,
didn't we?
Yes,
I
I
see-
believe there's
I
one
see
person.
Matt, so,
Yes, if you could take Sandy Juno's comment first, that'd be great. Thank you.
Ms. Juno,
Sandy Juno, 616 Dauphin Street. I just wanted to say, you know, overall for the August election, we had a number of observers out at the polling locations, and we did get some very complimentary remarks from them on the poll workers for the city of Green Bay. However, there was one location that I did get a number of complaints, and that was UWGB. People were finding it very, very difficult to identify the polling location within the building. There was a problem with lack of signage out along Nicolay Drive, as well as into the building and the room itself. So I did send a communication to the council, along with some statistics showing what the voting record has been over the last 5 years, to consider a different location for wards 1 and 2 for the November election. So I hope that that is being looked at and we can make some improvements there. Thank you.
thank you. Matt,
And I wanted to just mention about, I had visited a few different locations.
I
Can
need
you
your
hear me?
name.
Oh, yeah, sorry, Polly Razor, 419 East
Oh.
Lipton Circle, sorry.
All right, sorry, Holly, it says Matt, so.
Yeah, I know, we're driving, so. So I did go to several different areas, and I would agree that the signage out at GB was difficult. I myself had a hard time finding the room, walked right past it in a prior election. And then also the wildlife sanctuary is there's 3 different wards there, very loud, very echoey, very hard to, for certainly for observers to hear anything, even hard for the people to hear people state their names. I thought it was a very difficult, both times I observed there, a very difficult area for elections and being able to hear. It's very loud. So I think those were just a couple observations. And I did notice that we were still looking for poll workers. I guess I have a question for that because I saw an advertisement by some other agency. I know that we have submitted, the Republican Party had submitted several names that could be approved for this election by the council members. And I think that I would hope that Ms. Jeffries would bring that list, if not being used, to the council to have it approved to be able to use potentially, instead of looking out to the public for people. This is people that have already stated they would help. And I'm not sure where that's at, if that's being used or not being used, or if those people are already been contacted. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right.
Motion to close the floor.
All right, do I have a second?
Okay,
Alder Morgan, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Floor is now closed. Alder Grant,
I just want to make a comment because UWGB is in my district and I can confirm I did receive calls that day about signage. And when I went out there myself to vote, there was, not as many signs as normal. Even after people had complained about it, I went out there about 5 p.m. So that is something that I would really like to hear, maybe a possible solution on that or alternative options.
Alder Grant, did you reach out to Clerk Jeffries directly?
I did, yep.
Okay, perfect. So we have to take a motion to,
Oh, so this motion is to receive and place on file.
correct. All right, do I have a second? I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? All right. Goes on. So now we are to consideration with possible action on a communication by Alder Weary District 8 to Protection and Policy Committee, which states request creation of a flagpole policy. City-owned flagpoles shall only be fly the United States, state of Wisconsin, and Green Bay city flags. Guidance located in the Alder Weary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, at the bequest of many at council, to bring this back at a later date, here it is. And so I cleaned it up, just kept it real simple, and that's what I'm presenting.
Okay, any other comments on it? No?
Well,
Alder Morgan,
Yeah, and I'd like to reaffirm, I did receive emails, text messages, and personal comments by the public that they were for having us be non-biased for any organization and keep it simple. As Alderman Weary's consideration states.
Alder Scannell,
yeah, well, there wasn't an organization. There is no organization. There's no LGBTQ plus organization. And I still oppose this because I still think we want to have the freedom to fly a Ukrainian flag or any other flag that we care to fly to show some support, to fly a Packer flag. To go to the Super Bowl, I definitely think we should be flying a Packer flag. So this is a community. What's the word I want? Community. An exhibit of community support for something. And anybody who didn't, so I had no problem with flying the pride flag. I don't see how that's controversial. I don't see why that's an issue. So I don't see any issue here. And I just don't, to go what if, you can do what if till you're blue in the face on any number of issues. I just see no reason to go forward with this. So I still do not support it.
all right, thank you. Alder Weary, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I did. I apologize. I did forget something earlier. Since our last meeting, I did send out a survey email to people in my district, and I'm fortunate to have accumulated, several hundred email addresses. And unfortunately, with any survey I send out, not that many respond, but this one I've had the most responses on anything I've asked for in quite a while. I had 123 people reply back. And of those 123, 115 said, keep it federal, state, city. So that's 93%. It was 115 to 8. It was really overwhelming. The comments backed that up. Said, just keep it those three. And then I just want to share my results for District 8. Thanks.
Thank you.
Question for the alder?
Oh, go ahead, Alder Scannell.
Yeah, were there, in the responses, were there reasons given?
You can read the emails if you want, lots of reasons. A lot of people just wanted to keep it. They said, just keep it simple, keep everything else out, political, social, everything else, just honor, keep us all together under the US, state, and city flag. We all live in those, and we're government, and that's our function, is really just to run those. More colorful, but I won't read those. Both ways, there were some.
Okay, Alder Burnett.
Yeah, I mean, can you hear me? In
Yeah.
a little bit of a different location. I support the policy. I think we need some consistency and we need something in place to protect the city going forward from any group that doesn't feel like they were granted the same possibility to fly their flag. And if for any cause, whether it be a social cause, a human cause, a political cause, a religious cause, whatever it is, it's always in the eye of the beholder, and each flag symbolizes different things to different people and how it is interpreted. We should never assume that we know more than the general public in those regards. So one thing I'll kind of keep the council, because I've been kind of really looking at ethics and fair practices and consistent. And one thing that I'll caution the council on is that we have a equal rights ordinance, and there are three sections of that equal rights ordinance. There's public accommodation, there's housing, and there's an employment. And what I would ask Attorney Bungart, if she's available, would you consider a flagpole to be a public accommodation?
I think the definition, and I'm just speaking off the cuff, so I would have to our ordinance exactly, but I believe places of public accommodation are things of in the nature of restaurants, things, areas that, or businesses that, entities that accept members of the public. But I don't know if that distinction also applies to flagpoles specifically.
Yeah, I mean, look into it, if for the committee's sake, look into that, Attorney Bunger, because if, for example, groups or members of groups ask the city to fly one flag, and whoever is in the mayor's office at the time who sole discretion, he has the sole authority at this point, from what I understand. If he turns down the request of one group or one group of people or one person and puts up a flag for another person or another group, it's just going to open up the city to all kinds of accusations of discriminatory practices. We have to be fair and consistent, either all flags or no flags. And that's the only point I'll make, because I know it's a contentious issue, but just looking for the future to prevent any of these sorts of situations that will arise inevitably. Thank you.
Alder Burnett, I think maybe you were referring to creating a public forum, which if there is a policy in place, a policy where people can be making applications to fly one flag or another flag, that could lead to a First Amendment issue and a discrimination issue. But not when it's entirely discretionary. So I think maybe you were thinking of public forum, but I will still look into the
Yeah, I mean,
public accommodation.
again, yeah, legal capacity. We had a Supreme Court case recently where
Right,
the city of Boston was saying to a Christian group that they couldn't fly a flag, but yet they made a provision for every other flag. And
Correct.
that's what I'm looking to prevent.
Yes,
I'm
that was
not a legal expert, but
right.
I think by just saying these are the 3 flags that will fly, it will protect the city of all liability into the future. Just my thoughts.
All right, thank you. Alder.
I just want to point out too, just since this was brought up back in June, since then, well, technically, I think one was in May, but we've had 2 school districts do the same thing within the state. So kind of a response to Alder Scannell, what's the controversy? I understand we're not a school district, but clearly people want some things removed from government bodies or school districts. And I agree that staying neutral is our best decision as a city.
Hold on, Alder Scannell. Alder Eck.
Okay, so I'm in agreement. We do need a flag policy to prevent any future issues with other things that might be even, we'll say controversial, just something that doesn't represent all of the citizens. And I do want to, kind of just remind everybody that at the last meeting, when we did vote on this, many elders said that they would vote for it, but they didn't because it was the month of June. So that makes sense that Alder Weary is now waiting, and coming back and doing it in a different month. So that this was actually talked about, that if this was in a different month, I would have voted for it. So it is something that's needed. And, I guess maybe it was just not the right timing before.
All right, thank you. Alder Scannell.
Yeah, I'd like to make some corrections here. We'll start out with this last one. Alder said they would have considered it, not that they would have supported it, that they would not consider it because of the timing. They did not say they would vote for it, but they would consider it in the future. That's not the same as a voting for it. As far as Alder Burnett's concerned, our attorney brought this up. We do not have a forum. We are not legally at risk for anything because we do not have a policy. We are not providing a forum for people to submit what they want. So we are not in any danger of any First Amendment issues or of any legal action. And yeah, sure, there's some people who are gonna, you know, if we fly a Packer flag, there are Viking fans in Wisconsin, in Green Bay. You know, I don't think that's really a valid concern for flying the Packer flag, or in this case, that there are people who are upset that we flew a pride flag. Yeah. I will not support that kind of prejudice, because there's no other way that they're upset, as if they're don't support the pride flag. I see no controversy with anything that we've done here, and I will not support anything that smacks of that controversy, that gives that controversy any kind of credence. If someone was upset by that flag, I'd say, if, like with the Packer flag, you're a Viking fan. Oh, well. It's just not appropriate. And so I still do not support this and will not support it. That's all.
A pretty lengthy discussion, so let's move on to a motion.
If I could,
Alder
Mr.
Weary, I
Chairman.
see you.
If I could, just a brief comment. I think we may have to check the record, but I think at least one older person did say they would have voted for this if it were a different month. So I just wanted to counter that. And personally, I think we should not be subject to the political or social whims of one person and one person only who happens to be our mayor. That's really very wrong. You know, it could go a number of different directions, and why don't we just keep it something that we can all agree on? We're all Americans, we're all Wisconsinites, we all live in the city of Green Bay. Let's fix your roads, work in your parks.
Alder Weary, I do have a question for you. Do you know any other cities or towns that have a flag policy that we're trying to do here?
There are others, but rather than borrow something, I just kept it very vanilla and simple, and thought I'd roll this out to the committee and see what they thought.
So do you think that we should maybe refer this to staff for further further investigation on an ordinance?
Well, I know it's been done elsewhere, so as far as I'm concerned, we can just enact it. I don't need to refer it, you know, you can see what the wisdom of the committee and council is, but I don't need to, no.
All right. Alder Eck.
Okay, and you know, I'm not trying to, I don't know, maybe be profound or anything, but you mentioned the Packer flag, and obviously we're Green Bay, but would you have a problem with flying a Viking flag? So there's that case, there's opening that door. Hey, we get a, you know, somebody who's a Bear fan and they want to hang a Bears fan. We're going to have an issue there too. So it can be, we can think of a lot of different scenarios where we're going to have a lot of issues with it. So this just keeps that from happening in the future. Thank you.
Alder Weary.
And my apologies, I see Attorney Bungert pinged in for a second there. This technically would have to go to staff because if it's in ordinance form, if it's a policy, we would need the policy drafted. So, right, okay, so it would have to go there to direct them to do that. So
Yes.
for that reason, it would.
I assume so, but thank you.
I'll just remind
see.
everybody about the nativity scene that I think most people thought was a great idea, myself included, helped put it up. Flack came, we took it down. You know, why divide the community, you know, over something like that? And it's a whole different issue, but man, it caused a lot of stir. And we should be focusing, look at the time we're spending on this. I mean,
Sure.
we shouldn't be. Keep those 3 flags, that's all. Refer to staff
Alder.
to create an ordinance or policy.
Question for the alder?
Alder, which one? Yeah,
A question for the alder?
go for it.
Okay, you brought up
Breaking
the nativity scene, but I've been checking the records. As far as I can tell, the city never adopted any kind of policy after that. Are you aware of any policy the city adopted after that? So
I'm
why are we
sure.
adopting
I'd
a
have to check.
policy now?
I'd have to check.
Okay, I could find nothing.
I don't want to say for fact, but
You don't remember anything?
I'd have to check. That's probably like 15 years ago. That's a lifetime ago.
Thank you. I do see someone that may want to speak on this item, so.
Motion open the floor.
Do I have a second?
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Scott?
Scott Van Attestein, 2410 Hampton Avenue. There is a federal policy on how the flags should be flown. And that should be the American flag, the state flag, and then the city flag. And if you're going to fly any other flag, it should be on a separate pole. There should be no other flags on that pole with the American flag. So I support what Alderman Weary is trying to do. So if you want, you look up the federal pole policy, and it's right there. And if I'm not mistaken, they just added the POW MIA flag to that policy. So that's all I've got.
All right, thank you, Scott. I don't think I have anybody else that wants to speak on it, so motion to close the floor.
Motion to close the floor.
Do I have a second?
Kent.
Alder Grant, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, lengthy discussion, so I will take a motion to refer to staff.
I make a motion, we refer to staff to create a flagpole policy and to use guidelines located in the federal flag code.
Okay, do I have a second? I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No?
No.
All right, 3-1. Yes. Off to the next, consideration of possible action, on law department recommendation to repeal the code of conducts of elected officials. Attorney Colehart or Attorney Mungert?
I will take this one. Thank you. So as the memo in your packet explains, it's fairly straightforward. The ethics code, which is in our ordinance, is separate from the code of conduct. We had both reviewed by a consultant a few years back. And pursuant to that review, much of the language in the code of conduct is subjective. It's value driven, which makes it extremely difficult to essentially enforce consistently. So, and there's actually certain parts of that code of conduct that should be part of the ethics code rather than operating as a code of conduct, and that other parts really would work better as internal operating procedures for council in the form of like rules of decorum, and then that would be enforceable against each other, alders against each other for the benefit of the entire body. And it would be enforced by the body itself versus being enforced by the ethics board. So based on that review, we've proposed significant revisions to the ethics code, which just went through the ethics board meeting last week and is going to be going to the council meeting on the 30th. And as part of that review and the recommendations that we received from the consultant, the law department's recommendation at this point is to repeal the code of conduct entirely. We don't have any pending ethics complaints, so it doesn't affect any current proceedings. And the recommendation, if the body so wishes, would be for staff to look into creating a rules of decorum, which would use objective, not subjective language. So we would shy away from those types of parameters. And then the violations would be enforceable by council itself, not by the ethics board.
Thank you. Alders, any questions?
Yeah, it's a question.
Alder Scannell?
So I got a little confused when I read the memo with the packet. So the ethics committee did look at this already?
No, the ethics committee looked at the ethics code. So there's the ethics code that's contained in our ordinance, and then the code of conduct was adopted by
They looked at, I see.
by
Okay.
council. So the code of conduct is those offenses of like, speaking to members of the public politely and those types of kind of more aspirational and subjective standards versus, you should be disclosing financial conflicts of interest with the clerk and things like that. So that was adopted and then lumped under the authority of the ethics board. So in the last few years, the ethics board has been prosecuting complaints filed for violations of the code of conduct. And then when we had the consultant come in and review, they reviewed both, since both kind of work in tandem. So at this point, what we would be doing is we would be separating that out, repealing the code of conduct entirely, and then creating something, if the alders like for something like that, creating kind of a rules of decorum or like operating procedure for council. We would try and scale back those provisions to be more objective and not so aspirational, not subjective, because where you have subjectivity, that's yourself up to First Amendment issues and liability issues and things like that. When you have clear-cut objective standards, it's a lot easier to apply fairly and evenly. Conduct will be coming to council to amend as part of our ordinance amendment. Not the code of conduct or the ethics code.
Yeah, that's, I got them mixed
Yeah,
up. too.
okay.
Sorry. Yeah. So the ethics code is already in our ordinance, and that's what the.
Yes, and that's what we're amending. We have made significant revisions to that based on a lot of the input and comments that we received from the consultant.
Okay.
So that's coming separately, and that's coming to, because that pursuant to our ordinance, that goes to the ethics board first for adoption and then on to council for full, for first and second reading.
So we don't even have to consider that at all right now. We're just focusing on the
No.
code of conduct and
Code of
reviewing
conduct
that.
and repealing it, correct?
Okay. Well, I think I'm.
So
on
my
board for that.
understanding is for us to move forward, we need to repeal the code of conduct.
Yeah,
Correct.
I mean, so moved.
Do I have a second? I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Nays? I can't tell what Grant and Morgan's doing.
I'd like to
Could I-
hear more discussion from some of the senior alders. Anyone have anything that can, I'm really lost kind of on what this is all detailing, why we need it.
The code of conduct, that's what we're repealing. You don't necessarily need it. That's why we're repealing it.
And it needs to be changed from what we have.
No, the ethics, you see, now you're getting them mixed up like I did. There's an ethics law that we have on the books, and that's what the Ethics Commission deals with. And in the past, they've also had to deal with the code of conduct. So they want to separate out the code of conduct, and they redid the ethics law, which will be coming later. That's separate. We don't have to think about that now. It's just the code of conduct. And as far as I'm concerned, as far as alders go, parliamentary procedure and state law has always given us the authority to what's the word I want? Police ourselves.
Mhm.
So I don't really see the need for the code of conduct. I never saw the need for the code of conduct from that regard. It was always just for me, it was a means for the public to address issues that they had trouble addressing in the past. So if they've redone the ethics law, we'll see how that addresses all those things. And for the code of conduct, I don't think we ourselves need a code of conduct for ourselves that we have always had and still have and will have, even if we do go forward with the code of conduct, which to me would be redundant, the authority to police ourselves accordingly. So I'm all for repealing the code of conduct.
Any other?
Sure.
Yeah.
I can
Go ahead,
do
Chairman.
my. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I obviously went through this as well back. We have the ordinance, which we need because that deals with disclosures. It shows the public what you might own in the city or stakes you have in certain things that you might be doing business with or family members who are employed by the city. They're very fact driven. And when we got into this more of this conduct, this code of conduct type of thing here that we drew or policy, while well-meaning, we discovered very quickly that there's a lot of gray areas, a lot of wormholes, a lot of areas fraught with peril because one person's view of something can be totally opposite of another. And then they have to try and fight that out in front of an ethics board, who I can tell you probably all of them wish they weren't there to deal with this gray area because some of it really was neither here nor there. So I'm all for repealing this. It was well-meant effort. And then like Alder Scannell said, we do have a lot of things on the books from the state parliamentary procedure. We can already address when each other misbehave. We do have that ability. We can censure them. We can ask them to leave a meeting. We can ban them from the next meeting. There's a lot of different things we can do. So this one does need to go. Thanks.
I see our attorney is in agreement with everything you said, that you're
Wow.
verbalizing it properly. So I guess I will vote yay for this
She
also.
gave me everything to say. I have it right there. She gave, no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Alder
Anyway,
Grant,
my
did you
vote
have-
is yay.
Okay, Alder Grant, did you have any questions?
No.
So let's do it again. All in favor?
Aye.
Nay? All right, I have it. It passes. Thank you.
The only thing is, maybe we need to add duct tape somewhere.
All right. Consideration of possible action on appeal
That would
by
apply to
Dual
you.
Sports Bar at 1114 Main Street regarding the 2022-2023 renewal license, a renewal liquor license application. Attorney Core.
Sure, this is an evidentiary hearing for Dual Sports Bar, the non-renewal. The process here would just be for the city. I think it's going to be brief to provide a statement, which I will do. And then if the legal representative of Dual Sports Bar is here, they can have 3 minutes and then the committee can decide whether to open it up to the public. I don't likely see a need for closed session here, but if the committee chooses, that option is in the agenda. So I will start. There were 2 documents provided to review, 2 legal documents filed in Brown County Circuit Court. In particular, document number 55 references a stipulation to dismiss an eviction claim. From my perspective, the 2 documents show that Dual Sports Bar no longer has the legal right to ownership, or I'm sorry, the legal right to hold a lease for that property, and therefore no longer meets the requirement for a liquor license. So a renewal cannot be granted to Dual Sports because they do not have a lease, which is one of the requirements to have a liquor license. So in just kind of including that, it's a matter of law that we cannot grant the license. And I think this information had been indicated to us previously, but this was filed in Brown County Circuit Court July 20th, and the date effective on the stipulation of the termination was July 31st, 2022. And Dual Sports Bar was to cease all sales of food. I'm reading from item number 3, food and beverages on the premises by midnight on July 31st, and to vacate the location by August 15th, 2022. So without a valid lease for this location, they cannot hold a liquor license to serve alcohol. That's all I have in terms of a legal representative of Dual Sports Bar. That would be Mr. Russ Rossio, if he is here, or an attorney representing Dual Sports. I do not see either of those. I see Mr. Kane is here, who spoke on behalf of Dual Sports. It's up to the committee. If you'd like to hear from him, you'd have to open up the floor and he would speak as a member of the public.
Motion to open the floor.
Do I have a second? Alder Morgan. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Nays? All right, ayes have it. Michael Kane? Nope, you're
Have
muted.
to unmute your mic.
Okay, Michael Kane, 33086 Sitka Street, Green Bay. As of about 30 days ago, I am now a legal member of Dual Sports Pro LLC. I did join the ownership group with that of that place. Anyway, I don't really have much to say. I mean, the stipulation we had, the agreement we had with our landlords, we did based on the city not renewing our license, we did basically give up our fight to stay in that building. They've been trying to evict us since January of 2021. A lot of money invested to stay there for that year and a half. When the city decided not to renew our license, we basically just dropped our case, dropped everything, and kind of let things fall. So we have been out of the building since August 15th. You know, I just want to kind of make the committee aware that nothing has changed since we've gone the last 50 days in that corridor of the 1100 block of Main Street. I mean, I've heard since April 25th, I've heard more inconsistent numbers, more lies than I've actually heard facts when it came down to not renewing the license. And I mean, I basically, we put $350,000 in that building, and we were given 4 days notice that this was our evidentiary hearing, which kind of contradicts what an actual evidentiary hearing is supposed to be. Supposed to be a lot more information going around than this, a lot more time given, a lot more evidence presented. So I'm basically just gonna leave it at that. We give up. And that's kind of where we're at.
Thank you.
Yeah, Alders, I could offer some additional information if it's helpful. I think the information I have is simple, but Mr. John Piscato was representing Dual Sports Bar at the time of the non-renewal. He sent a letter. I spoke to him multiple times. Assistant City Attorney Mays and I tried to reach out to him and the licensee, Mr. Rossio. I spoke to them on the phone, sent them multiple messages about scheduling this, multiple letters that went unanswered, including certified letters. I left messages with Mr. Piscato. The attorney was supposedly representing Dual. His assistant, again, no responses from neither the licensee or the attorney. And I appreciate that Mr. King says that he has joined the LLC, but when this license was applied for, it was applied for as an individual, and it was Mr. Rossio. And to my knowledge, we haven't received any information that indicates anything different. But I just, for the record, the attorney that we understood was representing them and had communicated with, stopped communicating with us for whatever reason.
Thank you. All right. I will take a motion to close the floor.
So moved.
Second. All right, by Alder Morgan, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So then it's the proper motion to,
The proper motion would be to deny the appeal.
okay, it seems like we've done this
It
like
doesn't-
100 times. Motion to deny the appeal.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
By Alder Morgan, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Nays? All right, that has been denied. Informational, the clerk's office liquor licensing report for August 22, 2022. Clerk Jeffries? Oh, you're muted.
Deputy Clerk Fugie will be attending these meetings on vacation today. So we wanted to provide an update to the committee and to the council where we stand with liquor licenses. As you can see, for the report. It's been a very robust license period. And we do have only one available license right now. So if you have any questions about the report, I'd be happy to answer those.
Steven,
Questions? All right, I'll take a motion to receive and place on file.
Motion to receive and place on file.
Do I have a second?
second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Nays? All right, the ayes have it. Liquor violation report, Lieutenant Mahoney.
We have no violations to report during the time frame from last meeting to this meeting.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Take a motion to receive and place on file.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? All right. Ayes have it. Before we adjourn, we need to discuss about going back into back to City Hall. Attorney Kohart and I were discussing this earlier. It sounds like we could start this with our next meeting. Is that correct?
That should be possible. We would just have to confirm if the desire is to stay hybrid, which is recommended. We would use council chambers, which as long as they're not in use at this time, which I don't believe they are, at least they weren't tonight. We would just have to go through the process of scheduling.
I think there's a
for-
conflict with Plan Commission for council chambers.
I think the Plan Commission has been online, or at least they are still virtual, not online, I'm sorry.
So they're still virtual?
We can confirm. But there are other meetings scheduled at this time, and I think what I had spoken to Alder Stevens, the update from Director Hronik and IT was that the committee rooms have not yet been converted in terms of technology for hybrid, but obviously council chambers can be. So I think we can make that work, but the recommendation is still to allow a virtual option for participation. This committee especially has a lot of public participation. So we could allow that, much like you all do at council. So we can confirm first whether council chambers are available. And if not, I think we could potentially still do hybrid. We likely just wouldn't have video capability. We would have audio though in the committee rooms.
I'm Alder Scannell.
Yeah, I'm all for getting back together. Let's get the band together. And hopefully Chambers is empty, or otherwise maybe we could storm it. But whatever room they need to put us in, because I do think we need to keep this hybrid. But if we can get together, I'm all for that.
I'm ready to get back into City Hall for this, so.
what do we need to do? Have a motion or what?
It's really up to Alder Stevens to give us the direction to schedule here if we can.
Alder Grant, any comments?
Nope, I'd like to be back in person.
All right, perfect. I think all four of us would like to go back into person.
Oh, Lieutenant Mahoney shaking his head no.
It's time
I
for
miss
this.
seeing you in person, Randy.
Yeah, now I'm in trouble.
I think it'd be a lot better for everybody all the way around. If people still want to do Zoom or come in person, I think in person is a lot more friendlier than Zoom, so.
So I'll do my best to tomorrow to follow up on council chambers and check in on the Plan Commission schedule. And then if there's an alternative, if that isn't available. But if council chambers is available, just one of us that participates in the meeting each time just has to do a little bit of training, which I can do about running the technology in the chambers.
Right, sounds like a plan to me.
I will get back to you via email, hopefully tomorrow.
Sounds great. All right, the last item, adjournment.
Motion
Take a
to adjourn it.
Do I have a second? By Alder Morgan, all in favor?
Bye.
All right, thank you, everybody.